Scribbling is a really big part of my illustrative technique. I actually get paid to scribble. Hello YouTube, it's Mary Janelle here. About 2 to 3 years ago, at the start of the pandemic, I started putting some Scribble video tutorials here on YouTube. Big loops, little loops, the more you layer, the darker it gets. I was really doing it because I was isolated and I just needed something to do. And I made a couple of Scribble tutorials that have a lot of views. And I followed along the comments and the views and thought, wow, people really want to scribble and we want to understand this art form called scribbling, if there is an art form called scribbling. I have a story on my Curiosities Apprentice podcast, which is my memoir cast, Stories of My Life, where I share about my grandmother, who was a very refined oil painter, scolding me for scribbling outside of the lines. Bless her heart, I know she meant well, but there was something inside of my creative little spirit that thought, well, I'm gonna scribble. And I have continued to scribble my whole life. And there isn't a piece of visual art that I've ever created besides photography, but there isn't a part of like visual creation where I don't scribble. I add pink and I scribble to almost everything. So here's what I think everyone's wondering. Why and how does scribble art work anyway? I mean, you're just moving your pen or pencil around in making a shape, and why is it so fascinating? What draws people to scribble art? Like, why have there been so many views to my tutorial here on YouTube? Like, what is it about scribble art that fascinates everyone? I think in order to understand why scribble art works or why we're attracted to it, it's because it's loose and free. But there's also a fascination to why the values and the form works when you're just scribbling. And the big key, I just said it, is values. I think understanding values in art, which is essentially the lights and the darks. When you're scribbling, if you keep your scribbles or your lines far apart, the light from the paper or the surface shines through and becomes like the lightest part of the image where, it's in the brightness. And then if you get more scribbly and close together with your scribbles or your dots or your cross-hatching, you end up creating shadow because not as much light from the paper or the light surface is shining through, and it becomes the shadow. And I find that there's a fascination to people seeing scribbles and they think, wow, it's like magic of some sort. All of the scribbling just makes a picture. And that's why I think people want to scribble. As artists, I think we're attracted to scribbling because we want to be loose and free. I'm the host of the Bold Artist podcast, and I listen to artists talk about their process and their development, and almost all of them say at some point in their career that they decided or wanted to be more loose and free with their brushstrokes or their pencil marks. They just want to loosen up. We all just want to loosen up. And scribbling is that. It's the expression of being loose and just letting it go on the paper, and then having enough skill to know where to tighten up and have the values, and then where to loosen up and let the light shine through. And so that's my best explanation for why everyone's been so fascinated to click on my Scribble Art tutorials and what it is we're looking for as artists that draw us to loose and free brushstrokes. I think that loose and free in any way, whether it's scribbling or just like splashing paint around, it makes us feel liberated, but it's also an expression from the inside out. Artists, we have this great privilege of showing the world the inside out. What's in here gets expressed out here through some sort of medium. And so that is scribbling. For me, that's scribbling. In the links below, you can check out my website, my podcast, and all kinds of other things that I have on the go besides scribbling. Have a great day, YouTube. Until next time, keep being curious.